During a lunch meeting, I was talking with a neighbor about various matters. We discussed the weather and our children, sharing laughter and conversations full of energy, until suddenly she asked me, "Did your daughter give you any money for this holiday?" I paused briefly and gave her a calm smile. "No." This time I decided not to accept it. "What? Why?" she asked, surprised. "Nothing bad happened, right?" Although times are tough for young people, they say it's the duty of children to support their parents financially. I took a sip of my hot tea before calmly replying, "I used to think the same way. However, something happened that made me see things differently. A few years ago, my daughter got married and started a new life with her husband. At first, they lived on a modest income, but even after getting married, she would send me a small amount of money every month. At first, I accepted her help with gratitude, appreciating her intention. "Mom, it's not much, but please take it. At least this way, you can treat yourself to a coffee," she would say with a bright smile. I would reply with a smile and thank her for her affection, though inside, I didn't always feel completely comfortable. I thought about how new their life together was, the expenses they must have, and I worried that sending me money was a burden. Still, I didn't want to reject her gesture of generosity, so I accepted it month after month, repeating the same routine. One day, when my daughter and her husband were celebrating their first wedding anniversary, I went to visit their house. Their baby had been sick, and they had just returned from the hospital. They looked completely exhausted. To help them, I decided to make dinner, and when I opened the fridge, I realized the food containers were empty. "Lately, we've been trying to spend less on groceries, but I'll go to market tomorrow," she said with a smile. At that moment, I felt a pain in my chest. I reflected on how they were cutting back on their expenses. But despite everything, they still sent me money every month. After dinner, my son-in-law went out to buy medicine, and I stayed talking with my daughter in the living room. During our conversation, she sighed with an exhausted expression. "Are you okay, daughter? Are you feeling unwell?" I asked, concerned. She tried to smile and shake her head, but her eyes quickly filled with tears. "Mom, honestly, I've been going through some tough times lately. The baby keeps getting sick, and household expenses have increased. I was deeply impacted by this, because I always saw her as so positive and never realized what was going on. Why didn't you tell me before? You could have shared this with me." She hesitated for a moment and, in a whisper, responded, "My husband has suggested several times that we stop sending you money, but I didn't dare bring it up. It's something I promised you, and I feared you'd be upset if I told you I couldn't keep helping." At that moment, it felt like I had been struck hard in the head. My daughter and her husband were reorganizing their own budget just to send me money each month. They wanted to fulfill their responsibility to me, even if it affected their own well-being. "Mom," she continued, her voice trembling, "last month, I didn't have enough money to pay the credit card, so I had to dip into my savings from before I got married. But still, I didn't want to stop sending you your money every month. I'm sorry, Mom." My heart tightened. I immediately took her hand. "Really? Did you spend all your savings on this? Did you use your own money just to give it to me?" She nodded, wiping away her tears. Seeing her like that, a wave of guilt completely overwhelmed me. My daughter, even after getting married, was sacrificing her own future just to avoid letting me down. That night, when I got home, I couldn't sleep. All the money she had sent me was safely stored in my bank account, untouched, while she struggled every month to gather it. I kept wondering why I had accepted that money without hesitation. My intention had been for my daughter to live comfortably without depending on me, but in the end, I was the one who had become a burden to her. Before continuing, please remember to like the video if you're enjoying it, and subscribe to the channel for the best advice on how to attract abundance and prosperity into your life. Let's move forward. That night, I made a decision. I would never accept her money again. And not only that, but I also needed to explain my reasons without hurting her feelings. I didn't want her to think I was rejecting her affection or her gesture of love. The next day, I called her. Her voice sounded as cheerful as always, but I remember what happened the day before, felt a lump in my throat. Cautiously, I began, "Daughter, I need to tell you something. I've been thinking, and I believe the best thing is for you to stop sending me money." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line before she spoke with concern. "Mom, did I say something that upset you yesterday? If it's because you think it's hard for me, don't worry. I can still manage." It hurt me that she felt the need to calm me down when, in reality, it should have been me who comforted her. However, I remained firm and replied calmly, "No, daughter. I know you and your husband are very busy. I should be supporting you, not being a burden. I'm fine, so don't worry about sending me money. Use it for your family." My daughter remained silent for a few moments before responding with a broken voice. "Mom," she didn't finish the sentence, but I knew exactly what she was trying to express. From that moment on, we stopped the habit of her sending me money every month. It wasn't because she didn't love me, but because I loved her even more. Her voice trembled, as if she were on the verge of tears. "Mom, if you suddenly say that, you'll make me feel guilty. Even if it wasn't enough, I always wanted to look after you." I cut her words off immediately. "You don't have to feel guilty or think that you haven't done enough. Your love and good intentions are already more than enough. I know perfectly well everything you've done for me until now. So from now on, all I want is your affection. Instead of sending me money every month, call me whenever you can and come to visit me from time to time. That would make me more than happy." When I was honest with her, my daughter tried not to cry at first, but in the end, she couldn't avoid shedding tears. Hearing her sobbing, my eyes filled with tears too, but my heart felt relieved because I had finally shared my deepest feelings with her. "What makes me happiest, Mom, is seeing you well and at peace." I said, try and keep control over my own tears. My daughter sobbed. "Mom," she couldn't say another word, but I could clearly perceive what she was feeling inside. It wasn't melancholy, but rather a sense of relief and gratitude. When the conversation ended, my daughter said to me, "Thank you, Mom. I love you so much. From now on, as you advised, I will stop worrying about money and focus on my own family. But in return, I ask you to take good care of yourself and stay by my side for a long time." Upon hearing her last words, I couldn't stop the tears from falling. But this time they were tears of happiness and pride. From that moment on, our relationship underwent a slight but significant change. We began talking much more and became closer. Before, our conversations were almost a formality, mostly focused on the money we were sending each other. Now, instead of talking about money, we shared our experiences and emotions. When my daughter faced difficulties, she sought my advice, and I, as much as I could, supported her by taking care of my grandchildren or preparing meals for her. It wasn't financial support, but this bond, rooted in love and dedication, felt much stronger and more authentic. A neighbor who had been listening to my story nodded several times. After a brief silence, she took my hand and, in a gentle tone, said, "Now that you mention it, you're right. My son also sends me money every month. While I appreciate it, sometimes I feel a sense of guilt, but since he does it voluntarily, I feel I should accept it. However, upon reflecting on it, I wonder if this is really what being a parent is all about." I smiled and said to her, "It's not that we should reject everything, but before accepting, it's important to reflect on the situation and what our children feel." My neighbor looked at me with an understanding gaze. It's true, at first, when our children offer us money, we feel joy and peace. But we must not lose sight of the fact that this money comes with its own responsibilities. If they're married, they must take care of their family and handle multiple expenses. As parents, what we truly wish for is not for them to give us money, but for them to have a stable and fulfilling life. She wiped her eyes and sighed. To be honest, I didn't want to accept that money either, but I was worried that my son might feel hurt if I rejected it. Now, I think it's time to gather some courage. I gave him a gentle pat on the shoulder with affection. Speak to him calmly and without hurry. Children understand their parents' feelings much more than we imagine. I'm convinced that, in the end, they will realize that there are infinitely more valuable things in the parent-child relationship than money. She gave a warm smile and nodded. You're right. From now on, instead of just keeping the money he sends me, I'll suggest that we go out to eat together from time to time. That will be more beneficial for both of us. I smiled in response. That's an excellent idea. And if your children ever give you a small gift or dedicate their time to you instead of money, accept it with gratitude. But stop receiving money as if it were an obligation. In the long run, that will be better for them too. As I left and began the journey back home, a feeling of warmth and fulfillment filled my heart. I was happy to have shared with another mother what had once been a worry for me. But most of all, I found comfort in knowing that I was not the only one who had experienced those feelings. That connection made us feel less alone in our concerns. As I walked under the sunlight, I murmured to myself, we should not take the money our children offer without question just because they have the ability to do so. It's not that we depend on their financial support, but what we really want is for them to lead a life without worries. For parents, the greatest satisfaction is seeing their children without needs. The bond between parents and children doesn't require money to manifest. Sometimes, a genuine gesture and a little affection are more than enough. Although as parents, we may feel tempted to depend financially on our children, true love is the one that doesn't impose that burden on them. For this reason, I decided not to accept financial help from my daughter, and over time, this choice has become a matter of my own dignity. Finally, I would like to share my experience with other parents who may find themselves in a similar situation. If at any point you have felt that receiving money from your children creates a feeling of guilt, I encourage you to have an open conversation with them. Honestly express, I don't want your money, I want your happiness. That sincerity will undoubtedly touch your children's hearts. The path to happiness between parents and children is not always found in grand gestures, but in empathy and mutual respect. I trust that my story will provide comfort and strength to those who, like me, have dealt with this concern. It is said that there are 4 types of bonds between parents and children. The first is the bond of gratitude, where children return the love they have received. The second is the bond of resentment, where emotional debts accumulated in the past are settled. The third is the connection of debt, where acts from past lives are repaid. The fourth is a relationship in which an obligation is repaid. If a child has experienced a great blessing in a previous life, they are born in this existence as a child to repay that grace, caring for their parents devotedly throughout their lives, seeking their happiness, and after their departure, handling the funeral and ceremonies with total devotion. They also contribute to the community and benefit others, leaving a legacy in history that allows their name to be admired by the world, while also ensuring respect for their parents. This is how great virtues are developed. Throughout history, many loyal and devoted children have followed this same path. The second type of karmic bond is resolving a past enmity. In this case, the parents have caused resentment in their child in a past life, and the child is reborn as their son or daughter to settle that debt. On a smaller scale, the child disobeys and grieves their parents. On a larger scale, they can bring tragedy to their lives. During their life, They offer no care, no warm food or affection, and after death, even in the afterlife, they subject them to shame. In the most severe cases, if the child gains power or a high position, they engage in corruption and crimes, leading their family to ruin and desecrating the tombs of their ancestors. It makes people in the world curse him and spit on his lineage. Historical examples of this include traitors and villains like Max, Bobby, and Greg. The third type of karmic bond consists of the need to settle an economic debt. In this situation, the child has incurred a material obligation with their parents in a previous life and returns to pay it off. If the debt is significant, they will dedicate their existence to serving and caring for their parents. If it is smaller, they will care for them for a time and then distance themselves. An example of this could be a child who intensely focuses on their studies and seems poised for success but dies at a young age, or someone who progresses in business and amasses great wealth only to die unexpectedly. The fourth type of karmic bond is one of settling a debt. In this case, the parents have incurred material debt with their child in a previous life, so the child comes into this world to collect what is owed to them. If the debt is small, the parents invest in their education and marriage, and just when the child gains independence, they die. If the debt is greater, the child might squander the family wealth and lead the family to ruin. When people face difficulties, they tend to blame destiny or others, rather than acknowledging that they might be facing the consequences of past actions. Few humbly accept what has befallen them and seek to redeem their mistakes. As the saying goes, if you plant beans, you will harvest beans. If you plant peas, you will harvest peas. You can't plant thorns and expect to reap wheat. Now, I will share with you a text about the connection between parents and children. Have you ever heard the expression, parents do not comment on the virtues of their children, and children do not speak of the flaws of their parents? This phrase reflects a deep affection that ancient people felt for their children, a love that is not expressed overtly. In the book Ziji Tong Jian, Zhengzi is quoted, stating that wise individuals have love for their children, but they keep it hidden. When assigning tasks to them, they do not let their faces show the tenderness they feel. Guiding children through principles rather than strict rules is the proper approach. Despite the deep love parents feel for their children, it is essential to treat them with respect and seriousness without overtly expressing joy. Teaching through values, rather than imposing authority, is crucial for children to follow their parents' example. Imposing orders authoritatively can deteriorate the relationship, so guidance should be patient. Parents do not mention the qualities of their children for 3 reasons. First, to avoid the children developing a sense of pride. Second, because boasting about them could lead to envy or complications for the children. And finally, because it could be seen as a form of self-congratulation. So, what is meant by the expression, children do not point out the mistakes of their parents? According to Sima Guan, a child who sincerely points out the flaws of their parents is helping them correct their path. Although it is a filial duty to honor parents, if they make significant mistakes, the child should not follow them blindly, as this could result in something even more harmful. If a child witnesses injustices committed by their parents and chooses to remain silent, they simply become an observer without intervening. However, correcting parents does not require direct confrontation. Sima Guang recommends addressing them with courtesy, calmness, and kindness. If the parents do not listen after several attempts, the child should continue to be respectful and perseverant, waiting for the right moment to speak again. Even if the parents become upset or decide to punish the child, they should not harbor resentment, but continue showing respect. When someone questioned whether criticizing the flaws of the parents could harm their honor, Sima Guang explained that the child should correct the parents in private without making the issue public. This way, the parents have the opportunity to correct themselves without facing public shame. Only a truly respectful child knows how to correct their parents privately and conceal their flaws from others, which generates greater respect for them. As you listen to these words, I hope you reflect on the path you have taken up to this point. The time has come to value ourselves. We come into this world alone, and in the same way, we will leave alone. Human existence, at its core, is a solitary journey. Some have discovered a new way of living by embracing their solitude, while others have decided to close chapters after long periods of companionship. The meaning of my life is not defined by anyone else nor by the situations imposed by others. It is determined by my perception of myself and the decisions I make about how to live. In the company of others, we often adopt a role that has been imposed upon us, adjusting ourselves to a script that distances us from our essence. As a result, many people end up without the ability to look at themselves honestly and become overly critical or reluctant to recognize their true worth. True freedom is experienced by those who are alone. However, due to our habit of playing certain roles, when we encounter this independence, we may feel disoriented and overwhelmed. For this reason, many people find the idea of loneliness unbearable as they associate with melancholy, emptiness, and anguish. However, each person must walk their own path with dignity. It is time to pause and, even if just for a moment, put aside the partner and the children to direct that same care and affection we have given others toward ourselves. If I don't value myself, who will? How long has it been since you last enjoyed your own company? Have you ever taken a solo trip? Dare to be a solo traveler. Sit on a night train and watch how the lights pass by the glass. Being alone nourishes the mind and helps us see life from a broader perspective. Do you feel that overthinking overwhelms you? Having a mind full of ideas is positive. When we take a moment to reflect calmly, our spirit grows stronger. Let's appreciate the person we have been, the one who has dedicated their efforts to the well-being of their home and family. Let's love the life we built with dedication. Let us be grateful and show affection to our neighbors and those who have walked the path with us. We have already given the best of ourselves. We have fulfilled our duty. Now it is time to pause, to allow ourselves to heal. We have given our all and have reached the limit of exhaustion. So we deserve rest, recognition, and appreciation. Let's stop being so hard on ourselves and learn to treat ourselves with love and understanding. Let's stop for a moment in front of the mirror. Perhaps we have been avoiding looking at ourselves closely, but today let us face our own image. Let's remember who we were 10, 20, 30 years ago and look at the face that gazes back at us with affection. Yes, time has passed and we have aged. Sometimes melancholy and nostalgia wrap around us, but each wrinkle tells the story of our laughter, our sorrows, the loves we've experienced, and the farewells that have left their mark. It's our own face, but we have treated it as if it didn't belong to us, neglecting it without realizing it. When did our expression lines become so marked? When did our skin begin to lose its natural tone? There was a time when that face reflected the vitality of youth, the excitement of a parent seeing their child start school, the strength in times of financial hardship, and the sadness of a final goodbye with our parents. Now, when we look in the mirror, we see the reflection of those we once mourned. It's a face shaped by the years. Give a sincere smile. After so much time carrying worries, it is time offered hope and joy. Let's make an effort not to add more wrinkles of anguish. Let's look at our reflection and say, thank you. It has accompanied us throughout the years, facing each day with us. Let's make a promise. In the time that remains, we will live for ourselves. What we think turns into words, words into actions, actions into habits, and habits into changes that mark our lives. Our way of thinking defines our destiny. If we don't learn to love ourselves, how can we expect others to do so? That's why we should dedicate time to what we are passionate about. Let's return to that hobby we enjoyed so much. Let's visit that destination we've always dreamed of. Let's prioritize quality and buy those shoes that are worth it. Let's reach out to that friend with whom we can speak from the soul. Let's release resentments and grant the pending forgiveness, for it gives us freedom. Let's enjoy a special meal, even if we are far from home. And every morning, when we open our eyes, let's remember that we came into this world to be loved and that this moment is the happiest of our life. No matter how we spent our time until now, from this moment on, let's choose to be happy. Let's accept and love the person we see in the mirror. And when the time comes for our final rest, may we be able to affirm with gratitude that we live fully and joyfully. Let's value our face, which has been our faithful companion throughout life. Let's not wait until it's too late to enjoy existence. Let's not wait until we can no longer move to regret. As long as we have the ability, let's explore the places we've always wanted to visit. If we fall ill, let's not be afraid. Aging, getting sick, and leaving is part of everyone's journey. Let's place our body in the care of doctors, our soul in the hands of the heavens. But our mind, let's keep that under our control. As for our children and grandchildren, let's observe and listen carefully. But let's hold our words. Let's live with self-esteem and respect for ourselves, calmly accepting the natural course of life. I thank you for listening to this message in full. I trust that this reflection will help strengthen your bond with your children. If you found it helpful, don't forget to subscribe and give it a like. Why do I keep crying despite having money? This was the emotional confession of a 63-year-old person after reaching retirement. Throughout their life, they had tirelessly pursued wealth, eventually achieving financial stability. However, a deep sadness was reflected in their eyes, filled with regret, which no amount of money could dispel. When I was younger, I didn't understand that there are things in life more valuable than money. Why didn't I realize this sooner? Now I wonder, what's the point of all this money? Listening to their story, I was left speechless. There are so many people who live thinking that money is everything, convinced they can solve all their problems, facing each day with that belief. But is it really true? Lately, I've been hearing similar confessions more frequently. I have money saved in the bank, but I feel an emptiness in my heart. I accumulated wealth, but along the way, I lost things that were far too important. Now I understand that there are values much more significant than money. These stories are painful accounts of people who, without meaning to, left behind what truly matters in life. Perhaps, even now, many people are leaving valuable things behind in their pursuit of money, unaware of what they are losing. Could this be the case for you too? Is it possible that priceless aspects of your life are slowly fading away? This message in particular is for those going through the golden years of their existence, because there is still time. If you realize this now, you can fill the days ahead with a deeper, more meaningful purpose. I trust that the emotional confession of this elderly person, filled with tears, will mark a turning point in your life. Today, I want to share with you 7 lessons that, although not directly related to poverty, could make our old age much more challenging. These aren't just simple recommendations. They are profound reflections that could transform your life permanently. Before continuing, don't forget to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. Now let's explore these lessons. The first lesson is about health. For years, I saved money, but now I can't use that money to buy health, said an elderly man, trembling hands holding a package of medicine. He had just turned 60 and couldn't go a day without visiting the hospital. In his youth, he used to postpone medical checkups and dealt with discomfort by just taking painkillers. Despite long working hours and constant stress, he always put money ahead of taking care of his health. Skipping breakfast, eating quickly at noon, and having late dinners due to work became a daily routine. He never found time to exercise, and on weekends, he was so exhausted that all he did was rest. Unknowingly, this way of life gradually affected his health. Health, though intangible, can lead to devastating poverty. With a sick body, accumulated wealth and unfulfilled dreams lose all their value. An elderly man shared how, after his retirement, He and his wife had planned a trip to Jeju, a dream postponed for 30 years of hard work. However, sudden knee arthritis forced him to cancel the trip, and that dream was irreversibly lost. I have money, but I can't walk. If only I had taken better care of my health when I was young, he said sadly. Another person shared, when I was younger, money was something I urgently needed. That's why I worked 2 jobs, in the office by day and as a driver at night. I slept little and always felt tired. Thanks to those earnings, I now enjoy a more comfortable life. But I also have all the age-related diseases, diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, and I have to take many pills daily. To be truly rich, one must accumulate both money and well-being. Older people who have lived successfully agree on this. While saving money, also take care of your health, because if you lose your health, everything else crumbles. So, take a day off, rest, and take care of your body. What really makes a difference in how our old age will be are the habits we cultivate. In fact, people who enjoy a fulfilling and healthy old age share something in common: small daily habits. They save 1,001 every day, walk for 30 minutes, and, even with pending tasks, never neglected their lunch hour. On weekends, they made a rule to walk in the mountains. When stress arose, they took a walk in the park, making a routine. These practices, which may seem trivial at first glance, accumulate and contribute to a healthier and happier old age. When we are young, we tend to think that health will always be on our side. However, when it starts to deteriorate, no amount of money can restore it to its former state. No matter how much you have in your bank account, if your body is sick, it's hard to find true happiness. Are you sacrificing your well-being for money right now? Are you ignoring the signs of exhaustion and stress your work is sending you? Are you thinking, when this project is done, I'll start exercising, or next month I'll start eating healthier? Those thoughts slowly affect our health, but in a silent way. Health is our most valuable asset, even more than money. What have you done today for your well-being? What actions could you start taking tomorrow? The time to care for that treasure is now. The second lesson is about the time spent with family. I believe that money was the most important thing. So even when I had the chance to be with my loved ones, I preferred to work. I worked on weekends and during holidays, convinced that it was all for the well-being of my family. However, one day, the trembling voice of an elderly man made me reflect. Now that my children are grown, they no longer seek me. Relationships had cooled so much that family gatherings only happened on special days. One day, I realized something. My bank account was full, but I felt empty. Looking through the family album, I felt a deep loneliness when I saw there were almost no photos. I don't remember ever going on a picnic with my family, and I was always too busy to celebrate my wife's birthday. That's why there are no records of those moments. This is not just the experience of one person. Recently, I met a woman named Park Jumja who shared the following with me. I worked my whole life. My children were raised by their grandmother. Now, looking back, I realized that I wasn't there for my children's first steps, their first sports competitions, or their initial graduations. Those moments were experienced by their grandmother, and that time is gone. So what was all that money for? Another man shared, it was when I was told I had cancer. I wanted to transfer to a bigger hospital, but I couldn't afford to miss work. In the end, my wife had to face her illness without my support. I couldn't even visit her as I should have. I always thought I had to keep working to cover medical expenses, but in reality, it was just an excuse. When she died, I wasn't there. He couldn't continue speaking. Time with family is like an hourglass. Once the grains fall, they can't be recovered. A child's first achievements, your partner's anniversaries, or your parents' moment of health are moments that money can't bring back. How many times have you put off saying things like, "Dad, tomorrow is my competition. Please come." "Honey, can we go out this weekend?" Or, "Son, if you have a moment, come visit me." In a nursing home, an 88-year-old woman told me, "Going through financial difficulties was tough for a while, but the loneliness of not having a family is something that lasts a lifetime. The memories I have of the time spent with my family in my youth have become true treasures. The photos we took back then are now my most precious possessions." How many hours are in your day? How much time do you dedicate to being with your family each week? Thinking, when I have more time, when I make a bit more money, or after retirement, might be still in the most valuable moments of your life. Several older people I met told me something I'll never forget. Money can be earned again, but time cannot. Make the most of your time with loved ones while you can. That's what it really means to be rich. Why not enjoy a dinner with your loved ones tonight? Or perhaps add a new memory to the family album this weekend. A life rich in moments with family can be much more valuable than a wallet full of money. The third lesson is about genuine connections. A wallet full of business cards is now empty. Although I once had hundreds of contacts, when I got sick, I could barely remember who I could call. An elderly man with a melancholic smile told me, "When I was young, I didn't understand. At gatherings, everyone would pat me on the back and call me brother. But in reality, they were only interested in my money or my contacts. When I retired, they stopped calling me. During my hospitalization, after 30 years of work, almost no one came to visit me." Before we continue, remember to like the video if you're enjoying it, and subscribe to the channel for the best tips on attracting abundance and prosperity into your life. Let's move on. Only 2 people came to visit me at the hospital. The loneliness left by superficial relationships is an experience many know. A retired man I spoke with recently shared. We were part of a golf group. We met twice a month, always, although we did it mostly for professional reasons. After more than 10 years together, I thought we were true friends. But when my business collapsed, everyone stopped talking to me, as if they had decided in advance. There's another, even more moving story. I used to have dinners every night. At that time, I thought that was how to manage my relationships. I stopped sharing dinners with my family to attend those meetings. But now, reflecting on it, I think it would have been better to find a true friend and have a sincere conversation. The camaraderie of a night of drinks completely fades the next day. A younger colleague shared something that also surprised me. The day the boss retired, he was always someone with great presence and charm. However, on his last day, I saw him sitting alone in his empty office. Those who used to say they had a close relationship with him were too busy and didn't even take the time to say goodbye. That's when I realized that relationships built around a position disappear as soon as that position no longer exists. Superficial relationships are like a matter of statistics. The number of business cards exchanged, the number of social events attended, or the number of followers on social media. However, what really matters are not those numbers. A true friend is someone who shows up at your door when you're going through difficult times. Someone who keeps calling you by your name even when you no longer have money or status. An elderly man shared something with me that has stayed in my heart. People who enjoy a fulfilling retirement usually have a couple of lifelong friends. I have a friend I've met with every month for more than 30 years. Our friendship began in a neighborhood library, and today it's stronger than my relationship with my own family. Some people share their experiences. Every weekend, I meet with a group of friends at the park. We're all retired now, but we've created a small world that fills us with joy. You don't need to spend large sums of money to have a good time together. Now look at your phone. Of all those contacts, how many would be willing to answer a call in the middle of the night? Who would be by your side when you face a major loss? In the later years of life, What truly keeps us strong are not superficial relationships, but sincere friendships. What we really seek are not more acquaintances, but people with whom we can be authentic. Why not call that special friend today? A key reflection is about the passage of time. In our youth, time seemed to pass slowly. We think retirement is still far off, as if it were 20 or 15 years away. However, looking back, we realize that time has passed quickly, like grains of sand slipping through an hourglass. An older man opened an old notebook on his desk. In it, there was a list of goals he had written when he was young. I'll do it when I'm 60. I'll start after retirement. But he had postponed so many things that by the time he reached that age, he no longer had the energy or drive to accomplish them. Many of those goals had already become unattainable. An older man shared, "I always dreamed of learning to play the piano with my wife. That was our plan for when we retired. But when I finally stopped working, she was already gone. Now every time I see a piano, I feel deep sorrow. Why didn't I start back then? Why did I put it off?" Another man shared his story. "My father loved mountaineering. Every weekend, he invited me to go with him to the mountains, but I was always busy. I thought, after I finish this project, when I get the promotion, when I finish this job," and without realizing it was already too late. My father is now quite old, so he can no longer climb mountains as he used to. Even now on weekends, when I see the mountains, I can't help but think of him and tears fall. The passage of time is truly strange. When we're young, it seems like it will never end, but at some point, looking back, you realize how fleeting it has been. Mr. Carl Smith, after his retirement, expressed, "The change from 30 to 40 didn't have much impact on me, nor did reaching 50. However, when I hit 60, everything started to feel more urgent. There are so many things I want to do, but fewer and fewer that I can actually accomplish. It was at that moment that I realized time waits for no one." A grandmother I met in a nursing home shared her greatest regret. "If there's something you want to do it while you still can. Don't leave it for tomorrow." I spent my whole life holding back, saving money, keeping up appearances, worrying about what others thought. I kept putting everything off until I realized there was no time left for anything. Time doesn't wait for anyone. At this very moment, time continues its course. How many of the things you've always wanted to do are you still putting off? We often say, "I'll do it another time when I have more time or feel ready." But that later might never come. Although advances in medicine have increased our life expectancy, the period during which we can enjoy good health and activity is actually surprisingly brief. What we put off for tomorrow might become something we never do. Take a moment and think. What dreams are you still postponing? What if you start today, even with a small step toward them? Another important lesson relates to financial independence in old age. An older man shared his experience. "I had 50 million in my account. I thought it was a considerable amount, but then I had to spend 20 million on medical expenses and 10 million on dental treatments. In an instant, I almost had nothing left. That's when I realized what being ready for retirement truly means." With a tone full of regret, he said, "You can't rely on your children. They have their own responsibilities and commitments. It's not fair to expect them to take on the financial burden of their parents too. I understood that maintaining dignity in old age depends on being financially independent." Mrs. Williams, 78, who resides in a nursing home, said something I will never forget. "When I was young, I didn't understand it, but as the years passed, I realized that not having resources doesn't just mean living in poverty. It also means losing your pride. Being a grandmother who can't even give a small tip to her grandchildren is a pain that can't be measured in financial terms." Another elderly person shared their experience. I spent a month living at my son's and his wife's house. During that time, I was overwhelmed by a constant feeling of guilt and not belonging in that place. I managed to rent a small room, but my income is so limited that every night I worry about how I'll cover the expenses. Now, I regret not having prepared better when I was younger, though there's no going back. Economic independence is not just about meeting daily needs. It's also about preserving dignity, strengthening family bonds, and enjoying a good quality of life. The story of 73-year-old Mrs. Kim Soon-ja is an encouraging example. Since my 40s, I've run a small noodle business. I never made a lot of money, but I always saved steadily. Now I can give small tips and occasionally go to the beauty salon with my daughter-in-law. Even if it's only a little money, being able to spend it because I earned it through my own effort makes me feel deeply grateful. On the other hand, there are stories filled with pain. Once, I had to be hospitalized, and I didn't have health insurance. My children had to gather money to cover my expenses. Hearing people say things like, "What exemplary children you have," broke my heart. Is there anything more devastating than feeling like a burden to those you love? Financial independence in old age isn't just about the economic aspect. It's also deeply connected to self-esteem, family dynamics, and respect for our own dignity. How much are we putting off? Not considering that time doesn't stop. If we want to avoid situations that might lead us to say words we regret to our children, it's crucial to start taking action today. Those who enjoy a fulfilling retirement with independence share certain characteristic traits. Even if their income is modest, it comes in regularly. They have a fund set aside for unexpected expenses. They're prepared to cover health-related costs. It's more valuable to save regularly, even if it's just 10,000 won, than to try to accumulate 1 million all at once. Don't burn yourselves out chasing huge profits. The essential thing is to plan steadily and practically, especially when it comes to healthcare expenses. This is crucial. If you wait to organize yourselves after facing an illness, it will be too late. Think, how prepared are you right now for retirement? How do you envision the future you want? Taking small steps today might be the effort needed to ensure a dignified life in old age. Reflections on deferred dreams. Once, I met a 76-year-old man at a community center. He told me how, since he was young, he had wanted to learn to play the piano while enjoying classical music, imagining that he could perform some of those compositions. However, he always found excuses. He didn't have money, time, or felt he was too old. Now, he realizes that these were just excuses, and what he really lacked was courage. A touching story is that of a carpenter who always had a passion for painting. However, comments like, "Painting? You barely have time to get by," led him to give up on that dream. Years later, he enrolled in a painting class, where the instructor praised his natural talent, making him regret wasting 5 decades without pursuing his passion. I also recall the case of someone who wanted to learn English during a work trip. He felt embarrassed not being able to communicate without the help of an interpreter. However, he waited 3 decades before trying, and now, with a weaker memory, he regrets not starting much earlier. An elderly man once said an unforgettable phrase, "Do you know what it means to be young? It's not giving up on your dreams." What we regret most is not the money lost, but the dreams we've left behind. While money can be recovered, forgotten dreams are hard to reclaim. Dreams have no age limits. People who started new projects in the later stages of their lives have motivating stories. One person learned to swim at 67 and is now an expert in various styles. Another opened a small pottery workshop and displays their creations. There's also someone who used their pension to open a cafe, finally realizing a dream they have been waiting a long time for. Dreams can become even greater when they arise in maturity, as they reflect a life full of experiences and learning. Thinking that it's too late or that it's not appropriate for our age only limits our aspirations. A 93-year-old woman shared, "It's impossible to say that one has lived without regrets, but the most important thing is that the biggest regret isn't not having tried." Inner serenity, the true most precious good. During youth, many of us live fast-paced lives, filled with worries and anxiety about achieving our goals. However, when reflecting on the past, those who achieve financial success often regret not having lived more calmly. A former high-ranking executive of a large company recounted how, after suffering a heart attack, his doctor told him his health problem had been caused by emotional stress. It was at that moment that he realized he had neglected his mental well-being throughout his life. Each day, another man would look at himself in the mirror and say, "I have to do better. I need to be better than others." Now, with gray hair, he regrets not being kindred to himself. Inner peace cannot be obtained with money or fame. It is a state we must consciously cultivate, just as we care for our physical health. It is also vital to take care of our minds to avoid reaching old age burdened with more regrets than we truly need. What dreams do you hold in your heart? What holds you back? Maybe today is the perfect day to take the first step. Among them, there are people with fortunes in the billions of one, and others who depend on basic social welfare. Despite this difference, they share something fundamental. They understood early on the importance of inner peace and seek it constantly. Every morning, upon waking, they look out the window, take 3 deep breaths, and reflect on 3 things they are grateful for. They also dedicate 10 minutes each night to meditation, although it was difficult at first. Today, this moment has become the most fulfilling part of their day. While walking, they enjoy the singing of the birds and realize how unnecessary their impatience was when they were younger. These practices cultivated their inner peace. We often say to ourselves, "I must increase my income. I can't fall behind others. It's still not enough." Could these thoughts be stealing our peace? A 93-year-old monk once said, "True wealth is the one carried in the heart. A person with an empty heart, even if they have many possessions, will always feel restless and dissatisfied. In contrast, someone with a full heart knows how to value what they have, no matter how little it may be. That is the true secret to happiness." At this very moment, do you feel that your heart is at peace? Do you dedicate at least 5 minutes a day to take care of your mind? Perhaps what we truly need is not to accumulate more, but to discover a deeper and fuller inner peace. Where is your mind headed right now? Reflect on a small action you can begin today to achieve that authentic peace. This is one of the 7 lessons shared by a 63-year-old man who meditated. "I believe money solved everything, but in the end, the most valuable things cannot be bought with it." This was his final message after a life of reflection. We often only come to understand the essentials of our health when we no longer have it, the importance of family when it's no longer there, the true value of friendship when a friend drifts away, and the importance of time once it has passed. Similarly, it's only when we lose our inner peace that we truly understand its profound meaning. If we can only realize these things after losing them, wouldn't that be the greatest tragedy of life? The present is the most important moment. The people who accompany you and the actions you can take right now are the most valuable things you have. Before time passes, why not take our health seriously? Spend time with our loved ones, foster genuine relationships, move toward our goals, and seek inner serenity? We still have time. Everything can start from this very moment. Therefore, I ask you to do one thing. Call your loved ones right now. Spend the night with them after leaving work early. Starting tomorrow, begin walking for 10 minutes a day. Take that first step, even if small, toward that dream you've been putting off. Life is not eternal. But if we start now, we can still create transformations filled with joy. May each day be filled with moments without regrets. I hope to continue sharing more life lessons. I invite you to leave your valuable stories in the comments. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, like, and activate notifications to reach more people. Share it with those you value most. I sincerely wish you a fuller life, filled with well-being. Thank you very much.